Welcome everyone. This is the Upbeat Academy. My name is Mr. Charles. These are online lessons. We are discussing MIDI controllers. And MIDI controllers are hardware devices that control MIDI inputs inside of Ableton, inside of your DAW, inside of many different programs. So what we're going to do today is we're going to set up this MIDI controller and we're going to create a composition strictly using MIDI. That's it. So let me plug this in right here. And this is a USB A-B cable. So this is the B side, right? And typically most MIDI controllers use this type of data cable. And we're going to plug this into the keyboard. Then I plug this side into the computer. Right? Alright, so now if you look on Ableton, if you look up in the side, there should be a little yellow light. And this yellow light is going to be our indicator if the keyboard is working properly. So if that doesn't show up, what we have to do is go into our preferences, and we go into preferences by choosing live on the Mac or options on a PC. Then go under the MIDI tab. Let me scoot my camera a tiny bit. There we go. We go into, under this audio tab is where we see all this stuff. We're going to talk about that later. We're going to go under our link and MIDI tab. Under our link and MIDI tab, we have a bunch of options. We have the ability to turn on link, which is where you can sync to computers using Ableton over a Wi-Fi network or over a cabled network, and you can use two Ableton setups at the same time. You have this control services input and output area where we have our MPK Mini. And then let me make sure one thing. I want to make sure that my settings or sound settings are set up properly. We want to have this set up where we have our MPK Mini. That's what I'm using right here. And I want my input to be the MK Mini MK2. MK2. This push I want to be on none right now. Put none. Okay. So my input is MPK, right? My remote is MPK. My output, I'm not worrying about that because I don't need MIDI signal to be sent back into the keyboard. So on my keyboard, I want to be able to use these different pads. I want these to control my drums, and I want them to be able to control keys. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use only MIDI tracks. So I'm going to delete these audio tracks. I'm going to go to instruments, choose a drum rack, and I think I'm going to do something a little funky. So I'm going to do something around like 85 beats per minute. I'm going to use this splice pack that I have. I love this sound. I'm going to use this. Alright. Alright. So let's make sure this is good. Great. So this is going to be, I'm going to use that as a loop, as some extra percussion. I want a kick. I'm going to get a kick. Let's get a kick sound. Alright, I like that one. Alright, let me close some of this stuff. I want a snare. Let's do a rim shot. Do something interesting. Yeah, so I want some like nice background percussion, just kind of give myself a little bit of space on this. open hat. Let's do that type of hat. Okay. So I'm going to set a choke group because I want this open hat to So if you notice, one thing's going to happen is that the hi-hat's going to cut this off so that I'm also going to do, remember we talked about that sidechain compression in that effects video? What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a compressor on here because whenever I hit this kick drum, I want this to duck under the kick drum. So I'm going to set this so that the kick drum affects it. So I'm going to get this all set up. Great. So that's wonderful, right? So I'm going to get this to actually duck a little bit more. All right. So let's play out a drum pattern. I like to actually put my MIDI clips in first because what it allows me to do is to just play and it's going to automatically loop around. So I'm going to do 4 bars. I'm going to arm it. And let's go. All right, so I got to do a little bit of quantizing. So I'm actually going to I'm going to do this one way at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with my hi-hats. And then I'm going to layer my kick and snare on. So let's go from here and let's go. Oh. Oh, wrong button. Sorry. All right, here, let's go. Want some swing. So I'm actually going to shorten these right here, delete these ones. Want a little bit of this. This is like external percussion. Just gonna just loop these around. Put these boy at the top. All right, see? So now what I can do is I'm going to start doing my kick drum. All right. And snare drum. So look, I was able to continue to play, and because it's looping around, I can take in stuff, take certain things out. I'm going to actually turn the gain down on this loop right here. Perfect. And that's really great right there. We're able to actually have a drum loop that we played out by hand. It's got some swing to it. I didn't quantize any of the notes. I'm actually going to scoot this kick drum forward a little bit though, because I wanted this to start at the 1. Alright, so now we can drop some instruments in, and I'm going to use some Ableton, default Ableton instruments. I would actually like to use a preset, this old school Rhodes. So I can make my own loop. This is going to be all original today. And I'm going to use some packs that I got. This is an Ableton Live Standard. This is free with Ableton Live Standard. I have this pack called Probability Pack. And I use this thing called Probability ARP. And the Probability ARP is a great tool because it allows you to make chords just by holding down one key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this ARP function. And I'm going to make this some really nice chords. Let's see, major 7 maybe? All right, I like those. Let's try that. And then I can just stop it and it's going to record it perfectly. So now what I can do is I can duplicate this and I can actually add in just a different instrument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to turn on this arpeggiator. And I want to add in this brass effect, and let's see how this sounds. I want to be able to actually, I'm going to group all these tracks together. Group these together. And now what I want to do is I want to have a little bit of fun. So I made this great track that I'm happy with. It's a good loop. And what I want to be able to do is I want to turn off my Midi, turn off my arming, and what I want to do is I want to assign on and offs to this. So what I'm doing here is this is how I'm going to be able to mute my tracks, right? So I'm able to mute my tracks. So watch this. I can press play. Further, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on, there's these DJ effects performance tools that they give you where I'm able to add filters and just different types of really cool things. So I'm going to put this on here and I want to adjust it. So if you see, I'm able to turn these knobs and I have the ability to affect different parts. So let's press play. Dopeness that allows me to actually mess around with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop on, I got this tool that was crafted completely out of Ableton. There we go. It's crafted completely out of Ableton devices. It has stutters in it and these sweeps, and this is a great performance tool because what you can end up doing from this is you can end up, let's close this chain. You can end up, all right, let's see if it's going to allow me to, there we go. Turn that up. Yeah, great. All right, so watch what happens. I'm going to actually just turn these knobs and watch how this changes my track. All right. So let's press play. So this like gives it a different type of bounce. Stop that because if you notice something, my CPU up here is getting a little clocked, and the reason that is because I'm using so many different effects. So what I can do from here is I actually can put this just on the master channel, and I'm going to delete this, and now watch. The CPU is speaking, but it's not going crazy. Alright. So I think I'm going to vibe out like this. I think I'm going to ride out like this. This is the beginning of our MIDI lesson. We're going a little bit more in depth about MIDI mapping, twisting these knobs and making stuff that makes sense. And vibe, and vibe, and vibe, and vibe, and vibe, and vibe, and vibe. Thank you. Stay upbeat.